25-22 the final. The Patriots were absolutely reeling. Losers of 6 in a row heading into this game. Drake May gets knocked out after the third drive of the game. Jacoby Brissett comes in and put together 2 key drives at the end of this game to close it out and get this victory 25-22. What were your initial takeaways and your reactions when this game went final, Jahmai?
I think one of my biggest takeaways was Drake May's play initially. He was looking like the offensive MVP, was carrying the offense as far as I'm concerned. And then the biggest thing after that was Jacoby Brissett coming in, having 2 failed drives essentially, and then finally finding his rhythm again after being out the last couple of weeks with Drake taking over the starting quarterback position. So I like the way that he managed the game. I like the way that he was able to find his footing and make throws when they counted, even though his receivers at different points in times in this contest let him down with some of those drops. Yeah. But he stayed with it. His leadership showed, and as he talked about post-game, I don't want to be cocky, but I'm proud of myself. And he should be, because what a big game for him to be able to come in, considering everything that's happened and the way that, obviously he's not completely absolved. The team was, 4 games below 500 when he was the starting quarterback. Some of those tough games, obviously, that they could have won, but obviously some of those that they could have won as well, which we'll talk about a little bit later in here. But I think that was the biggest takeaway. And then the other thing is the whole big narrative of this team being soft. The way they responded, able to push the goal line plays across and just outman the Jets at different points in time, especially towards the end of the game when they needed a touchdown. To go 70-yard drive for the victory, that was huge. That's not the sign of a soft team. And they could have easily quit, and this whole thing could have spiraled. They could have been listening to all the noise and just bagged it up, say, hey, we're looking for the first-round pick next year. But no, this team showed up when it counted. They came up with some defensive stops when they needed to. And they also played some of those elite wide receivers that the Jets have. Pretty good games against them, even though, Wilson did pick up some yardage, but I felt like when it counted, they came to play.
Yeah, exactly. I love that you point out, because to me, this was a huge week just for that Patriots locker room and for Jerod Mayo to show a response for him. Because after that loss in London to the Jaguars, he calls the team soft. And then everyone from the outside, like we're talking guys on other teams saying you never say that publicly. Obviously, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, the go-to the franchise, calling it out, go, soft? That's not a soft roster. And Devin McCourty and Ty Law saying, well, if that team is soft, we want to see the coach do more. You're a reflection of your coach. This team was anything but that. They didn't run the ball really well all game, but when they needed to, they did. Ramondre Stevenson set up on a great punt return by Marcus Jones, punched it in from not too far out for their second touchdown of the game. Then the last 2 drives of the game, 46 yards and 70 yards to total 10 points, and seal this win for them. But this is a team that needed to respond. All the attention was on them, all the narratives, everyone calling them soft. And if they lost, which they were on track to, it would have been, well, they didn't run the ball that well. And the Jets running backs did run all over them. Yeah, they covered the kicking game, but it's a team that didn't respond well to a bad team that's reeling in themselves, as is the Jets as well. And now what we've seen from New York, too, is that they've lost 5 in a row. Like, this team looks bad. And it's not a playoff win equivalent. It's not season saving, but it says a lot about the resiliency in that locker room. It says a lot about these players responding well to Jerod Mayo, where we heard the leaders in that locker room say, look, he called us soft to our face, and he's right. We are soft. We don't care. But for them to respond the way they did with a team that is reeling, and what you just wanted to see was competent football, and they showed that today. Didn't turn the ball over, played well enough on special teams, and took advantage of the opposition giving them opportunities. Greg Zuerlein missing an extra point. A Christian Ellick sack late in the game on third down, pushing the Jets back, and then Greg the Leg pulling that field goal try where the Patriots flip it around to get 3 points out of that themselves. These key moments in the game where they needed to step up, they did. And you mentioned it too. We have to talk about it. Drake May gets knocked out of the game with concussion protocol. He finished that drive, but went into the locker room and never came back out. Jacoby Brissett stepped in, Jahmai. The next 2 drives were 3 and outs. The first 5 drives with him in the game, 39 yards, 0 points in 5 drives. Their last 2, 26 plays, 116 yards, and they get 11 points out of it, including that 2-point conversion at the end. When they need to step up the most, they did. And that's just what you want to see from a football team. Was it pretty, Jahmai? No. But they won, and I think that's what's important.
Yeah, and especially coming off of this week. Like, it was a big talking point. It was big-time fodder for talk radio. You're talking about your team is soft, something that you come publicly and you say on a podium is one of those things, as you talked about, it's kind of taboo. But this is who Gerard Mayo is and who he's shown us to be. He's one of the most transparent coaches in the National Football League. So you can't really fault him for that, because you cannot now put him inside this box when everybody's been praising the transparency and his, the lightness that he brings to the head coaching job in Foxboro after 20 plus years of Bill Belichick leading the franchise. And really, I would say maybe his last 10 or 12 kind of started to turn a little bit salty, because, if you had a conversation with Bill, it's not what you see on a podium on a Monday or, a Wednesday when you're talking about install week for the next opponent. So a lot of it was for show, but getting back to Gerard Mayo, I'm glad that he not only stuck to his guns, but he stayed true to who he was. And now he has an opportunity to use this as they continue to try to build this foundation for years to come. Because as you talked about, they're not talking about Super Bowl run this year. This is a team that's in a transition, trying to build a foundation. They got the number 1 overall pick. They got the quarterback in Drake May, who's going to be here for years to come. They're going to put some more pieces around this team. But this is a moment in a football season where you look back and say, hey, we didn't play our best in London. I thought it was a soft performance. But now you guys listen to me when I say you got to finish plays. You got to play tough. You got to win battles in the trenches. You got to do your 111. Now he can go back and be like, you see, when we get it done, when we do the things, we focus on our keys. Now this is the result that you guys are going to see on Sundays. It's going to end up in a victory.
And it's a big performance with no Kyle Duggar on the back end, one of their best players on defense, one of the few guys they still have healthy. Josh Uche was inactive, as he's been in the circles and whispers of possibly being a guy that's traded before the deadline.
Yeah,
no Daniel.
Scratch. A little bit of a surprise, right?
It is, but with his contract, his skill set, and he's been a guy that really hasn't translated that well for this defense. The last 2 weeks, 0 pressures, and he's getting pass rush snaps. If they can deal him for a team that would need him, like a Detroit Lions that need a pass rusher, if he gets a draft pick back, I think it's big, because he's also a guy that's on a rental deal. No Daniel Ukawale as well. But I'm with you, Jahmai. Like, strange, healthy scratch. That's a team that's telling you they're selling. And again, for them to respond like that, like, all right, well, they're giving up on us. They're going to trade away Uche, who's one of our best pass rushers. But they show up in a winnable game against an opponent that it was basically a staring contest of 2 bad football teams. But guess what? When it mattered most and the pressure was on, they pulled through. Jacoby Brissett, 15 for 24, 132 passing yards. He got 90 of those passing yards in the fourth quarter. He had that long scramble, 3 big plays on the fourth quarter drive. Long completion to Hunter Henry, 14-yard scramble, I believe. Then that 34-yard completion over the middle to Kayshon Boutte, overcoming his receivers with a lot of drops. This is a team that responded well, and that's what you wanted to see from them,
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, the receivers, there was a period in time there where I was like, these guys get paid to catch the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, Kayshon Boutte, certainly a bounce back effort from him, because he was booting the ball, no pun intended, all over the field and dropping them. He had hands like feet for a moment there, but came up big on that last drive, the 70-yard drive, to be able to lead to Ramondre Stevenson punching it in, and then the subsequent 2-point conversion to extend that in case the Jets were able to come back and kick a field goal. So there was a lot of big moments that this team can look to as they continue to go on in their year. And, it's funny because there was a lot of talk about the Jets, and this was a key point in their season where this was when they had to try and get it together if they wanted to push towards the playoffs. But obviously, divisional opponents, they're tough. It sometimes is almost a toss-up. So it's tough to sweep a team within the division. The Jets got the first one, but to come back in Foxboro is still a tough place to play and beat a team on any given Sunday, as they say, is a difficult task. So I'm not really surprised that they lost this game, but all the focus and attention was on the Jets and what they were trying to do, and to be able to not only snatch the victory for them, but had them reeling afterwards. Aaron Rodgers post-game was saying, we've been in the darkness. He's so philosophical with it. Who knows what he's going through? But they also got the Houston Texans next week. That's not a walkthrough for them. So I don't understand how they thought that this team was going to turn it around. I think the Patriots now can kind of build some momentum. They're playing the Tennessee Titans next week. That's a team that's a winnable game again. They obviously lost one earlier in the year to the Miami Dolphins, 15-10, another game that they should have had. So you start to look at some of these things and you start to project the schedule, what it can be, and you start to feel a little bit better about it, because maybe some of those pieces come back, Kyle Duggar, some of those run-stopping pieces, even though they probably are going to be selling some here with a trade deadline approaching in a couple of days. I think this is a team that can still, they've already, this is halfway to last year's win total or something like that. So
Yeah, they're at
I
2
think,
wins. They got 4 last year.
Exactly. So I'd like to see him surpass that possibly and kind of build some momentum and continue to build that foundation for this season, because next year it's going to be big.
And you point out for the Jets what it means, like how hard it is to pull off a sweep, but we can't sweep it under the rug that the last time these two teams met, the Jets absolutely embarrassed the Patriots. They won 24-3, but that was a game where everyone's going, oh, it's Aaron Rodgers. He's an MVP again. He's vintage. He's back. They kept him contained. He was never really in rhythm. Garrett Wilson was great. Davante Adams was kept out of check. The running backs were getting a lot of volume and were chipping away. But it simply was this Patriots team playing tough when they needed to. And that's what you just want to use about a team. And I'm not going out of my way to say they're tough because of the soft comments, because that's what they were. Whether they were called soft or not, that's what showed up big for them.